The U.S. Treasury tells the Fed it wants some of its stimulus money back.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by UKG. Ultimate Kronos Group offers HR solutions to connect modern workforces. UKG.com. Our purpose is people. And by Avalara, simplifying sales tax compliance with cloud-based solutions. Avalara automatically integrates with more than 700 of the most widely used ERP and e-commerce solutions. Avalara, tax compliance done right.
I'm David Brancaccio. I have to tell you about a rift that has developed with the U.S. Central Bank taking one view and the U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin taking another, with Mnuchin ending a pandemic stimulus program the Fed had wanted to keep going. Marketplace's Nova Safo joins us here. Which of the many programs are these?
So at issue is $450 billion allocated by Congress to fund emergency lending programs at the Fed that directly support businesses, nonprofits, and local governments. Now, these are taxpayer-funded programs versus what the Fed usually does, which is expand or contract credit on its own, or as some like to call it, print money. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin wants the taxpayer money returned to the Treasury by the end of December, which means the programs tied to them will end, potentially making it harder to get loans. And that has some economists concerned, including Jason Furman of Harvard, who was the chair of President Obama's Council of Economic Advisors.
I am afraid that we will see interest rates rise. Could be for consumers on auto loans. It could be for mid-sized businesses. It could be for states and localities. And that would cause further problems.
Now, chances are these things won't happen, Furman told me, but that's what these Treasury-funded Fed programs were there for, to hedge against the risk, David.
All right, but given the risk, why does Secretary Mnuchin want to end these programs?
Well, he says the economy has come back from the brink and the programs are no longer needed, and he says Congress had not intended for the programs to be going on this long, David.
All right, Nova, thank you very much. Checking stock index futures for the Dow, down 46 points, 0.2% right now. For the S&P, down 0.1%. The NASDAQ future is up slightly, 5 points. Wendy's, purveyors of squarular-shaped burgers, is buying 400 fast food joints. These places already say Wendy's, but they had been owned by NPC, a bankrupt franchisee. Eating places with drive-thrus have done comparatively well during pandemic, which may be part of the logic here. Marketplace's Andy Euler reports.
In its filing with the SEC, Wendy's says it doesn't necessarily want to run all the nearly 400 new restaurants. It just wants to make sure a new owner doesn't turn the property into something else. That's what restaurant analyst John Gordon with Pacific Management Consulting calls a hold and sell strategy.
What Wendy's wants to do is to buy a couple of markets and then hold them for a small period of time and then find the best franchisee to sell them to.
Wendy's says it remains committed to keeping ownership of about 5% of the total Wendy's system. Restaurant franchisee Flynn Restaurant Group had reportedly agreed to buy the properties, but Wendy's objected to the sale because Flynn owns franchises of direct competitors. RJ Hanavi at Morningstar says for Wendy's, this is about controlling as much as possible.
I think the idea is trying to maintain as consistent as operations, if anything, and probably improve on the operations.
He says one of the reasons these franchises are on the market is that the former owner didn't invest a lot in upkeep and technology. I'm Andy Euler for Marketplace.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by C3.ai. C3.ai software enables organizations to use artificial intelligence at enterprise scale, solving previously unsolvable business problems. Learn more at C3.ai. And by GEP, helping businesses transform supply chains with strategies, services, and cloud-native software, including GEP Smart and GEP Next, AI-based digital procurement and supply chain platforms, GEP.com. And by Rubrik, a company offering simplified data management with instant data recovery and ransomware protection. Because when your data is available for everything, you can be ready for anything. More at Rubrik.com.
Before the pandemic, if you look by demographic, black transgender people were the most economically challenged group of workers in the U.S. Now, the pandemic has piled on new challenges, but on this Transgender Awareness Week, Marketplace's Erica Barris reports that added federal protections and the increase of virtual interactions this year are seen as assets.
Applying for and interviewing for a job always involves a lot of scrutiny. Your qualifications, how you present, how you sound, how you look. That scrutiny is still there during the pandemic, but remote screening seems to eliminate some bias. Victoria Kirby-Yerk is the Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Justice Coalition.
With the number of companies now doing phone screenings first as a first line of entry to limit the number of people, it's actually given trans folks some more opportunity because they're being assessed by the quality of their candidacy.
It's hard to get past that hurdle, though. Jody Herman, a scholar of public policy at UCLA's law school, says her research shows that compared to the U.S. population at large, trans people are the most likely to be unemployed or living in poverty.
And these issues are particularly worse for Black respondents and other respondents who are people of color.
For those who do land jobs, 77% of trans individuals say they've taken active steps to avoid mistreatment at work. Hundreds of companies do have discrimination policies that cover trans employees, and some have gender-neutral dress codes, unisex bathrooms. But that's often not enough, especially in the pandemic. Now, bosses and colleagues are all peering into each other's personal lives through computer screens.
Especially for individuals who are not out about their identities, we're seeing, from remote work that this might be a source of anxiety.
Villanova University psychology and human resource professor Christian Thorogood. Thorogood says this summer's Supreme Court ruling clarifying that the Civil Rights Act protects gay and transgender workers from workplace discrimination may push more managers to adopt and enforce more local policies protecting trans employees. But he adds, because the pandemic is ongoing, it's hard to do research on the impact of the ruling and hard for workplaces to implement new policies. I'm Erica Barris for Marketplace.
And big airlines had scrapped extra fees for changing domestic flights, but there's news is that United and American will also let travelers now change overseas flights without penalty, all in a bid to attract somebody somewhere to get on a plane during pandemic. Our executive producer is Nicole Childers. Our digital producer is Alex Schroeder. Our engineers are Brian Allison, J.C. Bolt, and Ben Tolliday. I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.